One of the most disheartening things about the church of today is that we don't humanize people. There are too many of us within a church who are willing to fight against causes, but we just see individual people as X's and O's. We just see their sin as a part of the cause that we're fighting against. We don't see the person. There are those of us who can quote scriptures, who know the scriptures theologically well, but we lack compassion. We lack that new heart of flesh. We lack love because we don't see people's traumas. We don't see all the underlying issues that cause people to get to a point in life where they're struggling with their sexuality, where they're struggling with whether or not they should have abortion. Young men and women who are going to jail. All of these different topics that are prevalent within today's society. We have to understand that each individual person has a story behind what they're struggling with. There are too many of us who have God in our head, but not in our heart. Because instead of looking at everyone on an individual level and understanding that all of us are not called to the world, some of us are just called to one person. Some of us are just called to this group of individuals, this small group. The internet has us believing that all of us are called to speak to everyone. Every issue that we see going on in this world of the internet has made us to forget the faces, the stories, the people behind all of these different struggles. And the very first prime example of what I'm talking about is that so many of us within the church speak boldly against abortion. I am in agreement. Biblically, abortion is wrong. There are folks out here just having reckless sex, then wanting to have an abortion because they don't want it to ruin their career or because they don't actually like each other. This woman don't like this man that she had sex with. They were intoxicated or using drugs while they were having, it's so many different reasons why people decide to have an abortion. But I also grew up around little girls who I know that are now grown women who were being taken advantage of when we were kids. I know of people who have been raped. I've had conversations with these people. And because there is a level of empathy and compassion that I have towards what they're struggling with, I see it from a different perspective. It's not just this legalistic view of grouping all of these people together and not actually taking the time to understand the dynamic of their story. Jesus sat with and redeemed a prostitute because she was able to feel his love, because he actually cared for her as an individual. Jesus wasn't just out there fighting against causes. Everyone that Jesus healed spiritually or physically, it's because he touched them. It's because there was a connection between him and them, in the same way that as his extensions, we have to touch people, not just with our ability to quote scriptures or have knowledge, but because they actually feel the presence of God coming off of us. I wrote a poem called "What If Jesus Was Aborted?" and it's me sympathizing and compassionately asking people who I love, who I know, even though you've been raped, even though you were molested as a child, what if that child that is in your womb can be impactful to the world? Because I understand that abortion is wrong, but I also believe that we need to have empathy. It's one thing to just go out and pick it, but do we actually take the time to sit and talk to people, to get to know people one-on-one? It's one thing to fight against a cause, and it's a whole nother thing to actually help a person who is fighting. I have an aunt who adopted children. They've tried to kill her, put bleach in her water. They've held knives over her in her sleep. These are stories that I was actually close to. So my perspective of what's actually going on is a lot different from people. Because if we're going to preach so boldly against abortion, we also have to see the other side of the story when all these kids are in foster care, when all of these children are without families, when all of these children don't have anyone. Are we still willing to stand up then? Because I believe in fighting for the unborn. But we need to fight even harder for all of these kids that are here right now that are literally fighting for their life, in and out of jail, in and out of foster homes, boarding homes, and they don't feel like nobody cares about them. You can't advocate for something, and then when a person does decide not to have an abortion and maybe gives their child up for adoption, are you going to be the one to pick that child up? Because these children are coming from broken homes, and they are broken. And because I grew up with someone who didn't have their mother or father because they were on drugs and alcohol, and this is a person that I shared a bed with. We were kids together and I love this person. I've taken the time to understand the psychological effects of why this person that I love ended up in jail. Why this person that I love felt so unloved, even though he was in the same environment as me. Because the two people who were supposed to be caring for him were not. So when we talk about young men being in jail and reform and all these different things, I don't see it from a faraway view. I know people who were struggling with things. God does not desire for us to just carry around a Bible or carry around scriptures in our head and memorize it and be ready to shoot it out all the time. We have to also carry a heart of compassion. Homosexuality is wrong. Biblically, you cannot go to heaven living that type of lifestyle. I'll tell anyone that. But there is also this other side of me that understands that because I'm close to people who struggle with that is much deeper than what meets the eye. It's much deeper than just calling someone a sinner. It is a person behind transgenderism. It is a person behind someone who wants to sleep with the opposite sex. It is a person that is suffering internally. And because I love you, I don't want to see you suffer eternally. So I'm going to tell you the truth. But at the same time, how can I love you if I don't even try to understand you? God does not call us to accept our lifestyles or accept our sin. He calls us to die to ourselves and die to our sinful desires. But that goes for all of us, not just people who struggle with homosexuality. It applies to people who struggle with everything. It is an enemy behind pronouns and confusing our youth. The sin is real, but so is the person. We have to learn to fight against the principalities and not the individual. When we talk about homosexuality, I grew up with people who I know personally, who I've had conversations with. I understand the traumas a little bit deeper. I understand how they got to that point, at least to some degree. And there is deep trauma always present. Young girls who may not have the faces or the body of other young girls who don't feel attractive, who internally don't get a lot of attention from boys, and it affects them. Molestation, young boys who were raped, being in juvenile detention or around people with just the jail mentality, young boys who were molested. What I'm pleading for us to do is to look at the individual and stop just looking at the internet and being ready to fight for a cause. Fight for the person that you know in your life. And if you don't know some people, then get to know some people. Get some people next to you that you can love on. And this is not me making up excuses for people. This is me saying, let's be like Jesus. Jesus looked at people and he looked inside of them. He wanted to know them. He wants to know us. He wants to love us. He wants to have a relationship with us. But we just want to get over the internet and fight for a cause. We don't really want to be involved in people's life. For a lot of people, it doesn't even take much. It could be as simple as just calling them, checking on them, making sure they're okay. Having a real conversation if they want to have a real conversation, not just about topical things, but about things that are detrimental to our soul, things that are eating away at our eternity. There are so many people who will get on the internet and talk about all these societal issues and problems, but we won't get with someone one-on-one when we see them hurting, when we can see them lonely. That's why everyone in the generations of today's society are talking so much about therapy, because we just want somebody to talk to. We love to get on the internet and talk about self-love, but really deep down it's just loneliness. Outside of superficial relationships, most of us have left each other emotionally. It's all about business and who can do what for me, who can help me grow my business. But sometimes there's people who you're supposed to help that can't help you. But we're not doing that because we're too busy with our own comfort and our own lives and the things that we want out of life to pay attention to anybody else's life. We just want to fight for causes so we can feel good about ourselves, feel like we're holy, feel like we're doing something. Jesus didn't come down to this earth to find a cause to fight for. He came down here to fight for individuals, for me and for you. And that is the problem with the church. We treat people like X's and O's. We just treat people like groups. You're the gay group. You're the this group. You're the abortion group. You're the thugs and jailbirds. And we're going to pick it, but we're not going to fight for that individual because we're not even taking the time to actually walk with people. And if you're under the sound of my voice, I'm pleading with you. I'm pleading with you in Jesus' name. Hear my heart. And I love you from here to heaven.